Well, hi. Thanks for talking to me today. I appreciate it. I'm really enjoying the season so far. I want to see the end of it. So, because we haven't gotten them all yet. But so can you start by talking about obviously this season, everybody's at least at the beginning kind of trying to stay away from each other. So can you maybe just tease a bit about sort of where I guess you two characters, where your relationship is going to the trajectory of it this season?
You say between the characters between
Two,
Rowan
two of you, yes.
yeah, it's a great question, and I think this is one that's the dynamic is like it's very exciting, and I think the writers do such a great job at pushing them together, and then like kind of pulling them apart, and it's kind of this ebb and flow, and they can't really resist one another, and I think um, and I think that like two is better than one. I think they start to learn that um, to work through their demons and their issues when they put under like a lot of pressure is like such a good thing, and they learn to like communicate freely and openly between the two of them, and I think that really deepens their connection and their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, they all kind of make a sort of an agreement to go their separate ways because it's better for everyone to not be seen together. And the whole group comes together, and then, whenever Ronan and Nita are like physically close to each other, there's going to be tension. And so it kind of, like Cooper said, forces them to have to face the situation together. And also, I was just talking about how there's a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding about the way in which each of them approached this situation with Jake at the end of season one. And once they start communicating about it openly and honestly, then we see their relationship flourish and like get deeper.
Right, right. I was going to say, I think trust between all of them too this season is very, very important as we get to see. So what parts of the characters do you find the easiest to connect to, and what do you have the most difficulty connecting to?
I think you can't. That's a great question. It's just like straight about that. That's a really great question. I think you can't really judge a character. I think that's an important thing to do. You can't. You have to be able to like empathize. And I think in terms of Nate, it was really tricky connecting with his past. He comes from a very like broken home. His dad's an alcoholic. His mom left him when he was so young, and then she comes back and just expects him to be so willing to bring her back into his life. And so I think that was hard to connect to. And so it sort of, you do have to have a certain level of compassion and empathy. But one thing that I think I found it easy to connect to was the fact that he is somewhat of a daredevil and a thrill seeker. And I tend to think that I like to embrace like adrenaline filled activities, and he rides a motorcycle and he deals drugs, and I think that I mean, not that I deal drugs, but it takes a certain
kind of person to have the courage to do something.
Courage to do something like so dangerous, and I like that aspect. I think I like to embrace like danger. So that's something that I could connect with. Yeah,
he does. This guy, like you see him snowboarding, it's just like insane.
You were great at skiing. You were great at skiing. You embraced it too. I love it.
Oh my god. Anyway, I think for me the easiest thing to connect to Bronwyn about is her heart and especially her like tenderness towards Maeve. I remember in the book, when I read the book for the first time, she has this sort of like prayer to God about like, Maeve has been sick, and she says like, God, if you save Maeve, if she lives, I'm going to do everything right, and I'm going to keep it together and just be the best girl that I can be. And like, I just like, even thinking about it, I get emotional. I'm like, oh my God, for some reason I just I was so touched by that. And I feel like I still carry that even throughout season 2 because of the dynamic with Maeve and how much she wants to protect her. And that also plays out in the relationship with her parents and how she cares for friends and how she really feels like she needs to fix everything, and it comes from that place of like, I feel responsible to fix things. And then the hardest thing, I think it's just putting yourself in these insane circumstances where people are dying, and like it's very like not ordinary stuff that you deal with. You have great directors and a great showrunner like Erica. I think they really make it easy for us to have an environment where you can tap into those places on set and create the space and the time to do so. So I feel very lucky with the team that we had, and the crew that we had, and the directors that we had, and our showrunner, and just everyone, really.
All right. You mentioned the book, and I did want to ask, how do you kind of balance what you take from the book versus a script versus what you creatively, add and bring of yourself?
I like to see it as the book is sort of like a guide that I always go back to because it's like peeking through the characters' like thoughts. You don't really get that on a script. On a script, like a film script, you kind of see what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The scene is usually about everything that's happening under that, and the relationships. And I think that's why the book is so good because it's like a great parting point of like, oh, where these characters' thoughts originate. And then that kind of, for me, what it does is like it just like sparks imagination, and it's almost like because we've played these characters for a couple of years now. It's almost like you read a scene now, and I'm like, oh, I understand where Bronwyn would come from to approach this, or like how like her tone even in talking is. So I think the more sources you have to prep, like the more, in my case, I think my imagination just kind of like kicks in and like takes over.
Yeah, I would say a similar thing too. I think like the book is a great reference point, and it's almost like a journal that you can sort of go back to. And I remember being in quarantine when we first started shooting season 1, and like Chib, who plays Cooper, we got to bubble together, so we were reading through the book and we were kind of making annotations and taking notes and whatnot. So like I think that was a great way to start. But we've been sitting with these characters for so long now, and we have a season 1 to reference as well. That like we kind of have a sense of the world. We're able to like see it visually on screen from season 1, and also like season 2 doesn't go off the book. It goes in its complete own direction. So like Marianly said, you really have to have a keen imagination, and I think that's really supported through like the writing, great writers, and props to the writers and the showrunner Erica and all the directors and the cast as well. It truly is a collaboration, and it's beautiful to see.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, both of you. I appreciate it. And like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of it.
Thank you.
Us too. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks.